Princess Valara of the Ziran Empire stood tall in the grand hall of her father's palace. The walls shimmered with golden light, reflecting the power and wealth of her people. But despite the beauty around her, her mood was dark. Her father, Emperor Xalzor, had just told her something unthinkable. The humans wish for a peace treaty, and you will meet their representative. Valara clenched her fists. Humans, father, they are ruthless. They destroy everything in their path. Why should we even listen to them? The Emperor's deep voice was calm but firm. Because war is costly, and peace is wise. The humans are strong, Valara. We must understand them before we decide their place in the galaxy. Valara wanted to argue. She had heard the stories. How humans fought without fear. How they never surrendered. How they bent the laws of nature itself to survive. Unlike the Zirans, who valued tradition and order, humans were unpredictable and reckless. They are nothing more than savages, she said coldly. I will not waste my time. Her father's gaze sharpened. You will meet the human, and you will judge him with your own eyes. That is an order. Valara stiffened. She was a warrior princess, trained in battle and diplomacy. She could not refuse a command from the Emperor. Fine, she said through gritted teeth, but do not expect me to be impressed. A few days later, Valara arrived at the diplomatic summit on Cyphos 9, a neutral moon where alien races met to negotiate. The air was cool, and the sky above shimmered with the lights of distant stars. She walked into the meeting hall, her golden armor gleaming, her presence commanding respect. The Ziran envoys stood beside her, whispering among themselves. The human delegation had already arrived. And there he was, their representative, Captain Elias Voss. Valara had expected a brute, a towering, scared warrior with a savage grin. Instead, she saw a man standing tall and composed, his blue uniform crisp, his dark eyes sharp and calculating. He wasn't what she imagined. He wasn't what she wanted to imagine. Princess Valara. His voice was steady, firm. He did not bow, but he also did not show arrogance. Valara studied him, her expression cold. So, you are the human who wishes to beg for peace. Elias's lips curled slightly. Beg? No. I'm here to offer peace. But if it's war you want, humanity never runs. There it was. That confidence, that unyielding spirit, the very thing that made humans so dangerous. Valara folded her arms. Your kind has caused destruction across many worlds. Why should we believe you are any different? Elias met her gaze without flinching. Because we don't ask for trust. We prove it. His words unsettled her. Most alien leaders she had met were either too proud or too desperate. But this human, he was different. Still, she would not be fooled so easily. I will test you, Captain Voss, she said. If you truly wish for peace, then you will accept my challenge. The Ziran envoys murmured in surprise, but Elias only nodded. Name the challenge. Valara smirked. 3 trials. A test of strength, a test of intelligence, and a test of honor. If you pass, I will consider your offer. Elias tilted his head slightly. And if I fail? Then you will leave this place, and the Ziran Empire will never entertain your presence again. A moment of silence passed between them. Then Elias gave a small, confident smile. I accept. Valara's eyes narrowed. He did not hesitate. He did not show fear. Perhaps humans were more dangerous than she thought. But she would find out soon enough. Elias Voss stood in the open training ground of Cyphos 9, surrounded by towering Ziran warriors. Their golden armor gleamed under the artificial sunlight, their sharp, piercing eyes focused on him. At the center of it all was Princess Valara, arms crossed, watching him like a predator judging its prey. The first trial is one of strength, she announced. Her voice was clear, commanding. We Zirans do not trust words alone. Strength proves one's worth. If you cannot hold your ground, then your people do not deserve to stand beside us. Elias smirked slightly. So, what's the challenge? Wrestling. Lifting heavy objects. Arm wrestling the beast. Valera did not return his amusement. Instead, she motioned toward a massive Ziran warrior stepping forward. He was nearly 8 feet tall, his muscles thick like steel cables. "You will fight Commander Selver, one of my finest warriors," Valera said. "If you last 5 minutes without surrendering, you pass." The surrounding Zurans chuckled, their confidence in their commander evident. Elias, however, remained calm. He removed his jacket, revealing a lean but solid frame. He wasn't the biggest man, but he knew how to fight. Selver cracked his knuckles and grinned. "A human. This will be over quickly." Elias rolled his shoulders. "We'll see." The fight begins. The moment the signal was given, Selver charged like a rampaging beast. He swung a massive fist, aiming to end the fight in one blow. But Elias was fast. He sidestepped just in time, Selver's punch slamming into the ground with a loud boom, cracking the stone floor. The Zirans watching the fight murmured in surprise. Elias didn't waste a second. He ducked low and landed a sharp punch to Selver's ribs. The big alien barely flinched, but he scowled. "Not bad," Selver admitted, "but not enough." With a roar, he spun, using his massive arm like a club. Elias barely dodged, but Selver's strength was overwhelming. A single mistake would cost him the fight. For the next few minutes, Elias kept moving, dodging every brutal swing, every crushing stomp. He wasn't just avoiding blows. He was studying Selver's patterns. Zirans were strong, but their size made them slower than humans. Now he had a plan. Turning the fight around, Elias feigned exhaustion, letting his shoulders drop slightly. Selver smirked, thinking he had tired the human out. "That's it," the Ziran commander taunted. "All that confidence, but your body is weak." Elias gave a small grin. "You sure?" The moment Selver lunged forward again, Elias dropped low, twisting his body, and slammed his elbow into Selver's knee. The alien let out a grunt of pain, his balance shifting. This was Elias's chance. He climbed onto Selver's back, wrapping his arms around the giant warrior's neck in a chokehold. The Zirans gasped. No one had ever dared to grapple with one of their strongest warriors. Selver thrashed, trying to throw Elias off, but the human held on like a predator that had caught its prey. Seconds passed, then a full minute. Selver's movements grew slower. His breathing became labored. His strength, his greatest weapon, was now working against him. Finally, the massive Ziran fell to one knee, gasping. Before he could collapse completely, Elias released him and stepped back. The 5 minutes were up. A heavy silence filled the training ground. The Zirans had never expected this outcome. Selver groaned, rubbing his throat. Then, to everyone's surprise, he let out a deep laugh. "Well fought, human," he said, standing up. "You are not just talk." Elias shrugged. "I try my best." Valera watched, her expression unreadable. "You passed the first trial," she admitted. "But strength alone does not earn trust. The second trial will test your mind." Elias wiped sweat from his brow and smirked. "Good. I was never just about muscles anyway." But deep down, he knew the real challenge was yet to come. Elias stood in the grand chamber of the Ziran palace, his body still aching from the fight with Selver. The Zirans had underestimated him once, but he knew they wouldn't make the same mistake again. Princess Valera sat on her throne, her violet eyes fixed on him. The golden crown on her head shimmered under the glowing blue orbs that lit the chamber. Around her, high-ranking Ziran officials and warriors watched in silence. "You have proven your strength," Valera said, "but strength without intelligence is nothing. Now you will face the second trial, the trial of the mind." Elias tilted his head. "Let me guess, some kind of puzzle. A strategy test." Valera did not smile. "It is a test of wisdom and problem-solving. If you fail, we will know that humans rely only on brute force and instinct, not true intelligence." Elias crossed his arms. All right, let's do this. The trial begins. A massive circular table rose from the floor. Holographic images flickered above it, forming a complex battlefield. Ships, soldiers, and cities displayed in glowing blue light. This is a simulation of war, Valera explained. Your task is simple: defend this city from an enemy invasion. You have limited forces, and the enemy is stronger. If the city falls, you lose. Elias studied the battlefield. The enemy fleet was vast, powerful Ziran warships approaching from 3 sides, preparing to crush the defending forces. The defense was weak, with only a handful of ships and ground troops stationed at key points. The Ziran officials watched with interest. They expected him to struggle. No human had ever passed this trial before. Elias cracked his knuckles. All right, let's see what I'm working with. The strategy. He quickly analyzed the battlefield. The enemy was larger and stronger, but their forces were spread out, attacking from multiple directions. That was a weakness. Instead of splitting his defenses, like a normal strategist would, Elias did something unexpected. He ordered his troops to abandon the outer defenses and retreat into the city. The Zirans watching murmured. Was he giving up already? Valera frowned. You abandon the outskirts so easily. Elias smirked. No, I'm setting a trap. As the enemy forces moved forward, thinking they had an easy victory, Elias directed hidden defense turrets to target the fastest enemy ships first, cutting off their speed advantage. Then, he sent small strike teams behind enemy lines, disrupting their supply routes. The enemy slowed. Finally, as the attackers entered the city, Elias activated the last part of his plan: controlled demolitions. Tall structures collapsed, blocking key roads and trapping the enemy forces inside the narrow streets. Now, the once powerful invading force was stuck in close combat, where their size and numbers were useless. The defenders, though outnumbered, had the advantage. Minutes passed. The battle raged on. Then the simulation flickered. A message appeared in glowing letters. Victory achieved. The room fell silent. The Ziran officials stared in disbelief. Valera's eyes narrowed. You won. Elias exhaled and leaned back. Took me a minute, but yeah. Shock and respect. A murmur spread through the crowd. No human had ever completed the trial of the mind. They had expected Elias to make desperate moves, to fight like a cornered animal. But instead, he had fought like a commander. Valera's gaze lingered on him for a long moment. You used deception, resourcefulness, and strategy, she admitted. You do not fight like a brute. Elias chuckled. Well, humans don't like losing. We tend to find creative ways to win. Silver, still recovering from their earlier fight, grinned. I like this human. Valera stood. You have passed the second trial, but one final test remains. Elias sighed. Let me guess, some kind of moral test, a test of character. Valera's expression turned serious. No, this final trial is one of honor and sacrifice. Elias's smirk faded. For the first time, he felt a sense of unease. This wasn't just about proving himself anymore. This was something much bigger. Elias stood in the grand chamber once more, his heart still racing from the last challenge. He had proven his strength against Silver, outwitted the Ziran war simulation, and now only one final trial remained. Princess Valera rose from her throne, her long silver cape flowing behind her. The court was silent, every Ziran noble watching intently. The trial of honor is not a test of strength or intelligence, Valera said. It is a test of character. You must prove that humans are not just warriors or strategists, but beings of integrity and true honor. Elias crossed his arms. All right, what do I have to do? Valera's violet eyes locked onto his. You must make a choice that will determine your worth. The dilemma. 2 Ziran guards stepped forward, dragging a young Ziran prisoner between them. The prisoner, A boy no older than 16 had shackles around his wrists. His golden scales were dull, his clothes torn. Elias frowned. Who is this? Valera's expression remained unreadable. His name is Keller. He is accused of betraying the Ziran Empire by leaking military secrets to our enemies. The punishment for such a crime is death. Elias clenched his jaw. And you're telling me this because you will decide his fate, Valera said. The room tensed. Elias's eyes narrowed. What? The trial of honor is not about power. It is about justice, Valera explained. You must determine if this boy is guilty or innocent, and if guilty, you must deliver the sentence yourself. Elias's stomach twisted. He had expected another battle, another puzzle. But this was something else entirely. Hold on, Elias said, taking a step forward. What if I refuse? Then you fail, Valera said, and we will assume that humans lack the courage to make difficult decisions. Elias exhaled sharply. He turned to the boy. Did you do it? Elias asked. Keller's golden eyes met his. I was framed, the boy said, his voice trembling. I never betrayed my people. Someone set me up. Elias glanced at Valera. And you believe that? Valera remained silent. That is for you to decide. Seeking the truth, Elias rubbed his temples. This was not his kind of challenge. He was a soldier, an engineer, not a judge. But the Zirans were watching, waiting. He turned to Keller. If you were framed, do you have any proof? Keller hesitated. I don't. But I swear, I would never betray my people. Elias looked around the chamber. What about witnesses? Evidence. One of the high-ranking officials, a bulky Ziran with silver markings on his face, scoffed. The evidence has already been reviewed. The boy was found near the enemy's communication center. That alone is proof of his guilt. Elias frowned. That's not proof. That's just suspicion. The official sneered. Humans do not understand Ziran law. If you cannot make a decision, perhaps you are not worthy of this trial. Elias felt his fists clench. He took a deep breath. This wasn't just about Keller. This was about how Zirans viewed humanity. If he made the wrong choice, it would confirm their belief that humans were reckless, dishonorable, or weak. The gamble. Elias stepped closer to Keller. The boy flinched, expecting the worst. But instead, Elias turned to Valera. I won't condemn an innocent person. Valera's expression didn't change. Then you claim he is innocent. Elias shook his head. I don't have enough proof either way. And neither do you. The court murmured. Elias continued, his voice firm. A fair trial isn't about choosing between two bad options. It's about finding the truth. If you want me to act with honor, then let me investigate properly. Let me find out what really happened. Silence. Then, to his surprise, Valera smiled. You have passed, she said. Elias blinked. What? Valera gestured for the guards to release Keller. The shackles fell to the ground. This was the test, Valera explained, to see if you would blindly follow tradition, or if you would demand true justice. You proved that humans value honor not through power, but through conviction. Elias exhaled. You were testing me the whole time. Valera nodded. And you passed. The Ziran officials whispered among themselves. Some seemed impressed. Others, irritated. Silver smirked from the sidelines. Looks like the human has a brain after all. Valera turned back to Elias. You have completed all three trials. Strength, intelligence, and honor. Elias raised an eyebrow. Does that mean I'm finally done? Valera hesitated. Not quite, she said. Now we must discuss your true purpose here. Elias's stomach tightened. Something told him his challenges were far from over. Elias stood in the grand chamber, his body still tense from the final trial. He had proven his strength, intelligence, and honor. But Valera's words echoed in his mind. Now, we must discuss your true purpose here. He folded his arms, watching the alien princess closely. All right, no more tests, no more tricks. Just tell me, why am I really here? The court fell silent. The Zyran officials exchanged glances. Some seemed uneasy. Others looked almost impressed. Valera took a deep breath. Elias, the reason we brought you here is simple. We need you. Elias blinked. Need me? For what? She stepped forward, her violet eyes locked onto his. Because a war is coming. And only you can prevent it. A war on the horizon. The words hung in the air like a heavy storm cloud. Elias narrowed his eyes. What war? I thought the Zyran Empire was the most powerful force in this part of the galaxy. Valera nodded. We are. But there is one enemy even we cannot defeat alone. She turned, gesturing toward a massive holographic map that flickered to life in the center of the room. It showed the vast expanse of Zyran-controlled space, but at the very edge of the map, an unfamiliar red-marked region pulsed like a warning signal. The Xaphil Dominion, Valera said. Elias frowned. Never heard of them. Valera's expression darkened. They are a race of conquerors. They do not negotiate. They do not show mercy. They consume everything in their path. And now, they are coming for us. Elias exhaled slowly. Sounds like a problem. But I still don't see what this has to do with me. Valera looked at him, her gaze intense. Because you, Elias, might be the key to stopping them. Elias raised an eyebrow. Me? I'm just one guy. You are more than that, Valera insisted. You proved it in the trials. You think differently. You act differently. You are not bound by the same traditions and weaknesses that hold back our people. That is why I believe only a human can turn the tide of this war. Elias let out a short laugh. You want me to fight for you? Valera shook her head. No, I want you to lead. The impossible offer. Elias stared at her. Lead. He repeated. You're joking. I am not, Valera said. The Xaphil fight with overwhelming numbers and brute force. The Zyran military is strong, but we lack creativity. We rely on strategy passed down for generations, and the Xaphil have already adapted to it. She stepped closer. But humans, you are unpredictable. You think outside of patterns. That is why we need your mind, not just your strength. Elias rubbed the back of his neck. This is crazy. You barely even trust humans. Half the people in this room wanted to throw me in a cell a few days ago. Valera nodded. Many still do. But I do not care about their fears. I care about what will save my people. Elias sighed. What exactly are you asking me to do? Valera's voice was steady. Help us prepare. Train our forces. Show us how to fight like humans do. And when the war begins, stand with us. Elias glanced around the chamber. He could feel the weight of 100 alien eyes watching him. Some were skeptical. Others, hopeful. He thought about Earth. About how, even now, his people had no idea what was happening in this part of the galaxy. He had no obligation to help these aliens. He could refuse, demand to be sent back home. But something inside him hesitated. He had spent years fighting wars for people who barely cared. He had seen corrupt leaders, pointless battles, and soldiers thrown away like nothing. But this was different. This was an empire on the brink of destruction. A princess who was willing to risk everything to change her people's fate. And the enemy they faced, they weren't just a threat to the Zyrans. If the Xaphil conquered this part of the galaxy, Earth wouldn't be far behind. Elias took a deep breath. If I say no, what happens? Valera's expression darkened. Then we fight the war without you, and we lose. Silence. Then Elias let out a slow chuckle. You're really putting all your faith in me, huh? Valera smiled slightly. I trust what I see, and I see a human who refuses to lose. Elias shook his head, exhaling. All right, princess. You've got yourself a deal. The road ahead. The chamber erupted into murmurs. Some Zarin officials looked outraged. Others seemed relieved. Valara nodded. Then it is decided. From this moment on, Elias, you are an honorary commander of the Zarin Empire. Elias smirked. Sounds fancy. Valara's tone grew serious. Your work starts immediately. We must prepare. The HFY will be here sooner than you think. Elias felt a familiar rush in his veins, the feeling he got before a battle. This wasn't just about proving himself anymore. This was about survival. And if the Zirans thought humans were ruthless, they were about to learn just how dangerous human determination could be. The war for the galaxy had begun. Elias stood on the command deck of the Ziran warship, looking at the holographic battle map. The HFY fleet was moving faster than expected, and soon they would be at the borders of the Ziran Empire. Valara stood beside him, her arms crossed. We have 3 fleets stationed at the border, but they won't be enough to stop the HFY. Elias exhaled. Yeah, if we fight them head-on, we lose. The Ziran generals in the room exchanged glances. One of them, an older warrior named Korek, frowned. What are you suggesting, human? That we run? Elias shook his head. No, I'm saying we fight smarter. He turned to the map, his mind racing. The Zirans fought like warriors. The HFY fought like monsters. But humans fought like survivors. Elias tapped the map, zooming in on a system near the border. Here, the Maelstrom Belt. Valara raised an eyebrow. A field of asteroid debris and cosmic storms. It's a dead zone. Exactly, Elias said. That's why it's perfect. We can lure the HFY inside and use the environment against them. The generals looked uncertain, but Valara nodded slowly. You want to turn the battlefield into a trap. Elias smirked. Now you're getting it. Preparing for war. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation. Elias worked with Ziran engineers to modify their ships. Instead of facing the HFY in open combat, they would use hit-and-run tactics. Your ships are built for power, Elias told the engineers. But we need speed. We need stealth. Strip away unnecessary armor, upgrade the thrusters, and install remote explosives in the asteroids. The Zirans weren't used to this kind of warfare. Ambushes, deception, psychological tactics. But Elias knew that brute force wouldn't save them. They had to fight like humans. Valara watched Elias work, impressed by his ability to adapt. You think differently from us, she said. Elias chuckled. Humans have a saying, when you can't fight fair, fight smart. She smiled slightly. Then let's see if your strategy works. The HFY arrived. The Ziran fleet took position inside the Maelstrom Belt, hiding among the asteroids. Their ships were powered down, waiting in silence. Elias stood on the bridge, gripping the railing. All right, everyone. Stay hidden. Let them come to us. Minutes passed, then hours. And then, the HFY fleet arrived. Massive black warships entered the system, their hulls covered in spikes and burning red markings. Their engines roared like a storm. Elias narrowed his eyes. Wait for it. The HFY moved deeper into the belt, their scanners struggling to detect the Ziran ships among the debris. One of the Ziran officers tensed. They're too close. We should attack now. Elias held up a hand. Not yet. The HFY fleet moved further in. Their formation started to break apart as they avoided the larger asteroids. Elias smiled. Now, the trap is sprung. The Ziran ships came to life all at once. Engines roared and cannons fired. Explosions ripped through the HFY warships as the first wave of remote mines detonated. The HFY panicked. Their fleet was too deep inside to retreat quickly. They turned their weapons to fire. But the Ziran ships were already gone, darting between asteroids and striking from the shadows. Elias grinned. Welcome to guerrilla warfare, you ugly bastards. The Zirans fought differently now, striking, disappearing, and striking again. The Cathal couldn't keep up. Their warships were too slow, too bulky. One by one, they fell. But the battle wasn't over yet. A deadly counterattack. A Cathal command ship, larger than the rest, charged forward. Its shields deflected the asteroid mines, and its weapons fired massive plasma cannons. Elias cursed. That's their flagship. If we take it down, we break their entire attack force. Valara gripped her sword. Then we take it down. Elias nodded. I need a team. We're boarding that ship. Within minutes, Elias, Valara, and a team of elite Ziran warriors launched in a small attack shuttle. They weaved through enemy fire, dodging plasma bolts, until they crashed into the Cathal flagship's hull. The doors opened. A horde of Cathal warriors waited inside. Elias smirked and raised his weapon. Showtime. The final battle begins. Blasters fired. Swords clashed. The halls of the Cathal ship became a battleground, filled with the roars of warriors and the sharp echoes of combat. Elias fought with brutal efficiency, dodging and countering. The Zirans fought with honor, while the Cathal fought with rage. Valara cut down an enemy, her golden armor glowing in the dim light. We need to reach the control center. Elias kicked an enemy aside. Then let's move. They pushed forward, deeper into the ship. The final battle was about to begin. The fate of the war rested on what happened next. The hallways of the Cathal command ship were filled with chaos. Elias moved swiftly, dodging a strike from a Cathal warrior before firing his blaster. The alien let out a shriek and collapsed. Around him, the battle raged. Ziran warriors clashed with the monstrous Cathal, steel-meeting claws, energy blasts lighting up the dark corridors. Valara fought like a storm, her golden blade slicing through the enemy. Elias, she called out. We need to reach the control center now. Elias nodded, reloading his weapon. Then let's stop wasting time. With a final push, they cut through the last wave of Cathal soldiers and rushed forward. The fate of the war depended on what happened next. Reaching the control center, the team arrived at the massive doors of the ship's command center. The entrance was heavily secured, red warning lights flashing above. Valara examined the control panel. The security is tight. It will take time to override it. Elias grinned. Or we don't bother. He pulled out a small detonation charge and slapped it onto the door. With a press of a button, boom! The metal doors were blasted open. Smoke filled the air as the team rushed inside. The Cathal commander stood waiting. Unlike the others, this one was larger, stronger, and fully armored. His sharp red eyes locked onto Elias. You dare set foot in my domain, human. The alien's voice was a deep growl. Elias smirked. Yeah, and I didn't even wipe my boots. The Cathal roared and charged. The final fight. The commander was fast, much faster than Elias expected. He barely dodged as a massive clawed hand swung toward him, slashing through the air. Valara attacked from the side, her sword clashing against the commander's armor. Sparks flew, but he didn't even flinch. He was too strong. Elias aimed his blaster and fired, but the commander deflected the shots with his armored gauntlet. The alien grabbed Elias by the throat and lifted him off the ground. Humans are weak, the commander growled. You should have never come here. Elias struggled to breathe, his vision blurred. He could hear Valara shouting his name, but she was too far. Then he remembered. His free hand reached for his belt, where he had one last explosive charge. With the last of his strength, he slapped it onto the commander's chest and activated it. Beep. The Cathal's eyes widened. What? Boom. The explosion sent Elias flying backward. The Cathal commander stumbled, his armor cracking. Valara rushed forward, her sword piercing through his chest. The commander collapsed. Elias coughed, pushing himself up. You got him. Valera pulled her sword free. He's dead. Elias groaned. Good, because I'm not doing that again. Victory and survival. With the commander dead, the control center was theirs. Elias quickly worked on the ship's systems, disabling the Sathal fleet's communication network. The enemy forces outside lost coordination, making them easy targets for the Ziran fleet. One by one, the Xathal ships fell. Valera's communicator beeped. A Ziran officer's voice came through. Princess, the Xathal forces are retreating. We have won. Elias slumped into a chair. Told you my plan would work. Valera gave him a small smile. You were reckless, but you saved us. A new beginning. The war was over. The Xathal had suffered a defeat they wouldn't recover from. Elias stood on the balcony of the Ziran capital, looking at the night sky. He had come to this world as an outsider, a human among aliens. Now, he was a hero. Valera joined him, standing beside him in silence. The council wishes to honor you, she said. You could stay here, become part of Ziran society. Elias chuckled. I'm just a guy who got lucky. Besides, I'm not sure your people are ready for human ideas. Valera smirked. Maybe, but I think we need them. They stood there, watching the stars. The war was over, but the future was just beginning. The end.